Right now, the 2022 tax filing season is underway, and SARS has been inundated with complaints over refunds. Some of these end up in the office of the Tax Ombudsman. This afternoon, we're looking at the taxpayers' biggest complaints and what can be done to resolve them. To help us unpack this, we're speaking to Professor Thabo Lekgoila from the office of the Tax Ombudsman. Thank you very much, Mr. Lekgoila, for your time here on All Angles. There's one particular one that we've come to learn about, and it comes to the amount that is almost 50,000 rand. That was, that complaint amounted to about 50,000 rand by a taxpayer. Just describe to us or tell us more information, myself and the viewers, about exactly what this complaint was about.
Thank you very much, Marcelo, and good afternoon to you and to your viewers. This complaint is basically about, and as you talk about the tax season being now, this is about SARS collecting taxes from taxpayer, as they always do from all taxpayers. Now, what happened in this case is that the taxpayer defaulted. The taxpayer did not pay tax as he was supposed to do. And as you would know, that SARS is given massive powers in order to allow SARS to collect the taxes. So SARS actually did not hesitate to use those powers because they were taxes that were due. And they issued what we call a third-party appointment. A third-party appointment it's an instrument that allows SARS to write to your bank or to your employer or anybody who owes you to pay SARS on your behalf without you authorizing that. So that is what the SARS did in this regard. Unfortunately, the payment was duplicated. Duplicated in that the bank paid the initial 40,000 odd and then paid another 40,000, which duplicated the amount, and the taxpayer then had a situation where they ultimately paid more than they should to the SARS and needed to get a refund from SARS.
And, what was your decision in terms of this? Because you're saying that SARS used its power to be able to get the money that was owed to them from the taxpayer, but obviously now they had taken out the money twice. So, of course, then the taxpayer came to you with that complaint. So what was the decision later after the fact that they had actually debited from his account twice?
Yes, fantastic. So what happened then was that the taxpayer needed to get that extra 40,000 rands back. When they did that, they obviously applied for a refund from the SARS. And SARS said, look, time has passed. We've got a new tax year. You have not submitted your tax returns for the subsequent year. And therefore, we would not refund you until you submit your tax returns and you are fully tax compliant in the subsequent year. And the taxpayer then had a situation where they submitted the return, but SARS still did not refund them because they put a stopper. A stopper is very important on the part of the SARS because they want to make sure that they don't refund monies to wrong people or refund monies to wrong accounts or refund monies that are actually being laundered through the SARS system. So when they did that, the taxpayer then came to us to say, people, I am unable to get my refunds from SARS. SARS says that they have failed to refund me, and we inquired with the taxpayer to make sure that the taxpayer complied with the tax returns for the subsequent years before they could be refunded for the year in question.
But that was surely unfair, because how is it the taxpayer's problem that you debited from their account twice and now you're making them wait? 47,000 rand is a lot of money. And like I said, how was that fair on the taxpayer's part when SARS is the one that debited him twice when they were supposed to only debit once?
Absolutely. Good point there. The unfairness there is glaring. It's obvious that, firstly, they shouldn't deduct it twice. And when they've deducted it twice, they need to pay the taxpayer back immediately or as soon as possible. And hence we say it is debatable, really, whether SARS should be able to withhold refunds for one period purely because other periods are outstanding, or tax returns for other periods are outstanding and they are not assessed yet. And we find that there's a little bit of unfairness there. But also, on the other hand, I think it is incumbent upon our taxpayers to make sure that they submit their tax returns that are due, because otherwise you delay the refund. And ultimately, you find that a situation that should not be too punitive becomes too punitive because of the delays. When SARS utilizes its powers, it should not inflict more harm or more pain to taxpayers than it ordinarily should by utilizing those powers. And I understand your point about unfairness. I mean, like, it is grossly unfair. 40,000 rands is a huge amount of money to a lot of people.
And maybe what should also, come in cases such as this, Mr. Lekgoila, is that, this man spent a couple of months or to a year, until the new tax season, basically begging SARS to pay him his money from the previous tax season where the mistake was theirs. And, usually when this happens with banks, even the South African Reserve or SARS itself, is that you accumulate interest as a taxpayer if the mistake is on your side, right? So shouldn't they also accumulate interest when the problem is on their side?
Good point. The point is that when you owe SARS, yes, when they claim the money from you, they will claim it with interest. And when SARS owes you, when you claim it, you also need to claim it with interest, right? If there's interest due, because SARS is supposed to pay interest as well. But we find in instances where taxpayers just do not claim with interest, they just claim the money back. And what does SARS do? SARS pays the money back, and the taxpayer has to actually also indicate that they would like interest thereon. There are varied cases. There are instances where taxpayers get with interest or they refunds with interest, and other instances where they don't. And there are instances where we intervened to say that taxpayers should be paid with interest as is due. The time value of money works both ways. You cannot, but it is unfair. It is unjustified for a taxpayer to spend more than a year waiting for 40,000. We've got instances where businesses would close down because most of our businesses, especially small businesses, rely on cash flow, rely on liquidity. And if you take that liquidity away by not refunding, the same as by not paying, you may just bring a business to demise. A business might just die because of that. And, that is one of those things that our office tries our level best to make sure that we fast track this. We make sure that people or taxpayers are refunded on time. As you can imagine, when you owe SARS, you need to pay on time. Otherwise you get on the wrong side of the law. Otherwise, you don't get your tax clearance certificates. You don't get you may not enter into certain contracts with either government entities or other businesses because you're not tax compliant. So we do not want those the misfortunes of the tax administration to befall our taxpayers. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Lekgoila, thank you very much for speaking to us here on All Angles. He is from the Office of the Tax Ombudsman. Remember, as a taxpayer, you can contact them definitely if you feel as though SARS has not been fair on you in any particular way.